Hello, everyone. Just before we get into this week's episode, just a quick disclaimer that both myself and Adam's mics didn't record, so the audio used is from the laptop mic, which is why we sound real distant and not as clear as Dave. So, apologies about that. We learn from our mistakes and we'll do better going forward. Thank God Dave talked through most of this. He's an absolute legend and we loved having him on. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the podcast. Take care, and sorry.
Are you ready?
Here we go.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the second episode of the Sesh podcast with me, Aaron.
Me, Adam, how he's getting on?
I'm absolutely chuffed to announce this guest we have on Zoom here. He's an absolute legend. If you don't know who he is, where have you been? When he talks, you listen. His voice is so soothing. He's an award-winning mindset coach. He's a content creator with over 10,000 followers on Facebook, nearly 2,000 on Twitch, and over 1,000 on YouTube. It's none other than Dave Cottrell, aka Mindset by Dave.
Welcome to the after session.
Oh, thank you very much. It's like, well, we've just had the session, so this is the after session, right?
Yeah, get the whiskey out.
I'm not drinking whiskey with a couple of Irish boys. That's
Nice for the after, yeah.
That's a dangerous recipe.
Let's touch on a bit what you do there. Don't I go in a bit more into depth, let people know exactly what you do?
Yeah, to be fair, I spend more time working as what I call a mental health educator now than working as a coach. Being a coach is still my profession, and basically that was one-to-one. I used to work as a personal trainer, and I came off working as a PT into working with people's habit change and helping them change behaviors and stuff. And because I've got my own very, very speckled history with mental health, a lot of my content ended up going towards sharing my own private story and, well, personal story. It's not private, it's all over the bloody internet. And a lot of people were relating to that, and essentially I moved into sort of working with habit change, and I was doing some additional qualifications along the thing that I consider to be somewhat of a swear word, which is life coaching. When we think life coach, it's like we think person in big flowery shirt, and I do love a flowery shirt, who's just like, if you will it into the universe, it will come to you. And I'm a lot more practical than that, so I don't really like the title of life coach. So I went with the title of mindset coach, which is basically, I talk about mental health and I talk about habits and changes in behavior, changes in thought patterns, the same way as an exercises, the same way as a personal trainer would recommend exercises and thought patterns for your physical health. I do the same for your mental health. Very clear on boundaries and very clear that people know that I'm not a therapist, and I always refer out people to additional help if they need it. But I try and give them that bit of a different way of thinking about things. And then that's the one-to-one stuff, and the mental health education stuff. Basically, about 3 years ago, I started going into schools to share my own personal story and then share some of these techniques. I was doing that for free for the NHS, and they loved what I did, and they got some really good results off it in the schools in Lancashire. So they hired me a few months back to write a syllabus for teaching mental health awareness and sort of low level mental health personal development, the type of stuff that you can do without a therapist, for teaching that kind of first aid type level stuff in schools. And today has actually been an entire day of doing that, where I was training a group of teachers today to deliver the sessions that I used to teach. So it's two very, very different roles, that versus the content creation side, where I get to be Mindset by Dave on Twitch and just be my completely and utterly truly bipolar self, having open dialogues about mental health and all of that stuff. So yeah, basically mental health, and a bit more mental health.
Sorry, go on ahead.
See, when you're doing the PT lessons, were people coming to you at that time? about
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at first, I didn't share much about myself because I, like a lot of people, have it when they're working in an area. There's that pressure that you've got to be the one that's got it all worked out. So, as their personal trainer, I had to be the one that's always motivated. I had to be the one that's always on top of things. So that actually worked out being really good for my mental health in the short term over the first few years of being a PT, because I had to kind of do the whole fake it till you make it. Now, the reason I say in the short term, there's only so much of that you can do before you burn out again, and it's like, oh, I can't turn up today. And when that happened, I had, when I had my first sort of sick day, which I think was about 18 months in, I decided, every instinct in me wanted to tell people that it was, for some other made-up reason, and not the fact that it was about depression and the fact that I couldn't get out of bed, I couldn't shower, I couldn't brush my teeth. And I don't know, something, I decided, you know what, I don't want to hide this. Like, I don't want to hide this anymore. So I told the clients from that day, and they were like, oh, I'd never have thought about that from you, and all the rest of it. And then going forward, I'd basically, if I was having a day where I felt like I wasn't 100% there, I'd say to them, I'm sorry if I'm not 100% here today. I'm struggling with this, but I want to still be here for you to the best of my abilities. And it took a lot of time for me to sort of get past the hurdle with that, because there was a lot of internal stigma around, being good enough, and having, the idea that a coach wants to come across as someone who doesn't need a coach, or someone who doesn't need any additional help. And I realized that kind of hiding that side of me was only making me feel worse long term. Once I opened up about that, that was when clients, like the floodgates sort of opened in terms of both clients and online, requests. And it literally not asking for advice or anything like that, just kind of a lot of times saying, oh, me too, and that I've been through that too, and this is how I've dealt with it, and talking to me about how I've dealt with things. So that definitely, that definitely happened early on, once people knew that I was that I was able to talk about those things.
What were you going to say before I interrupt you?
Oh, no, I can't remember. I kind of got lost in the story there. You was dead right. That voice, very cute voice, man. Very easy man to listen to. No, man, that's incredible work, though. Do you know what I mean? It's fantastic to hear that you're out to build up that sort of relationship then with the people that you're working with, especially because they're out to resonate exactly with what you were going through, So
Yeah.
that's fantastic, man. But it's great to see you feeling so much better on the other side. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on a microphone right now or on camera.
Well, I mean, the thing is, and I think it's really key that people know this, is that I still don't have it all together. I still don't have it all 100% worked out. But there's an expression I use with my client base, which is, we don't guilt ourselves into greatness. It's like when everything's falling apart, turning around and saying to yourself, oh, as if, or like, what the hell's going on? Or man, we've all met through Alan originally, and it's like, who's got the sort of social handle of just man up, but obviously for different reasons. But like, that being that thing that you say to yourself, or like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? Those type of things. Those are the type of things I used to say to myself. Now I've just come out of I have bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed at 14, so I go in and out of depressive episodes, and it's not predictable how often it will happen. It seemed to be as a teenager, but as an adult, it's like I can have 3 years without a really bad one, and then I can have 18 months with bad one after bad one after bad one, And I had a really bad one last week, which lasted 5 days. And one big thing is that the second it happened, I was on stream when I felt the light go off inside my head, and I just told the audience, I said, look, I've not got the energy for the rest of the stream. I've just felt that kind of moment. I've just felt that change. And I said to them, I'm not going to apologize. I'm just going to end the stream early, because I wouldn't want any of you to ever have to apologize for your mental health. So I'm going to take my own advice on this one and not apologize for the fact that I've not got the energy today. And then I took the rest of the week off streaming until Saturday, and I was supposed to be on someone else's stream, and I literally, that light went back on again at about 20 to 11 on Friday evening, and then overcompensated, felt the other direction, and was bouncing off the walls and didn't particularly sleep. So that was lovely and convenient. But one of my big things is that I for a while wanted to really show, because I'm so much more in control of things now than I was when I was a kid. Like, you know, I didn't start getting in control of any part of my own mental health till I was about 28, and I was diagnosed at 14. So like literally by that point I'd spent half my life with a diagnosis, struggling and not really doing anything about it, because I'd maybe tried a few things and it didn't work. And you know, it's very easy to give up on thinking that anything's ever going to work for you. And I've had about 11 years now of kind of really working on it, and my ability to look after it, it gets better every time. But one of the big things I would say, it doesn't feel like it's better every time when you're depressed. It's like, it still feels like this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's like every single time. But one big change is I deal with myself with compassion now. I treat all of my clients with compassion. I treat my family with compassion. The last person on that list that it took me forever to get to was treating myself with compassion. So when I actually did take that time off, instead of sitting around all day going, ugh, I'm letting everybody down, ugh, as if I can't do this. Look, you talk about all this mindset and mental health, and here you are wallowing. Instead of that type of dialogue inside of my own head, I kind of went down the "it's okay not to be okay" route, and really spent a lot of time sort of accepting the emotions the way they were, where they were, accepting the fact that, you know, I struggled, and accepting the fact that that's okay, like treating myself like I would anybody else if they were in that same situation.
When you were diagnosed with bipolar, Dave, did you learn more dealing with it yourself, or was there actually proper help out there for yourself? Like, what would you say, like, because now people always say there's not that much help out there for people with depression and etc. So do you learn more going through the experience yourself and how to cope with it in the signs, or was there actually like doctors there advising you, or?
Yeah, I'd love to say that the doctors were loads of help, but I'd be lying. It's been a very mixed bag, really. I would say, I went down the personally prescribed coping mechanisms route. So I was put on some quite heavy antipsychotic drugs when I was 14. They basically took away the lows, but also took away the highs. But at the time, I was getting bullied in school quite heavily, and what I turned to at the time was, there was a little bit of gaming, but it was, you know, 1996. There wasn't that many good games out yet. You know, Final Fantasy VII hadn't even come out yet, and I think we were on FIFA 96 or whatever. It's like, it was still in an isometric viewpoint, and
Minecraft.
there was no Minecraft. It was FIFA in Minecraft, but everyone was called Steve, and. So the first thing I turned to was food, and that was you know, kind of something I call a boomerang in the work that I do. It gives you something positive in the short term, only to give you something negative in the long term. So for me, I'd eat it, it'd give me comfort, but then I'd feel bad about the fact that I'd eaten. Originally, I wouldn't feel bad for days. Eventually, I'd feel bad sometimes whilst I was still eating. So I had all of the problems that were still there, and none of the solutions really. It wasn't really helping, because all that kept on happening is I was just feeling worse and worse about myself. And later in my teens, that turned into alcohol, and then I kind of just tried to rush and get ahead with my life. Just after high school, I tried to like rush and get ahead with my life. I got married at 20, had my first child at 24, 23, 22. He's 16 now. How old am I? 23. There we go. Had my first child at 23. And then by 24, like, whilst I was trying to use life goals as the drug of choice, I had a full-on breakdown, ended up destroying the first marriage. And when that happened, I turned to drugs for my comfort then. So then it wasn't until I was I had that all led up to eventually to a suicide attempt when I was 27. And after that, I completely thought before all that I was a complete and utter waste of space. I'd burnt a load of bridges. By the time I started taking drugs, I lost all my non-drug taking friends. Then I got into a relationship that was really, really toxic, and burnt relationships with my family, with my drug taking friends. And I was left with basically absolutely nothing except for my 2 kids. But I thought that I was a waste of space and they deserved so much better. And instead of thinking, well, why don't I just get better? I thought there was no chance of that whatsoever. I didn't think I was ever going to get any better. And it was only after, thankfully, a failed suicide attempt. I was watching this film called The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. And it's a true story about a guy with locked-in syndrome. And he'd learned to communicate with a nurse through a series of blinks, and they'd written a book together for doing this. And there's a bit where he's on the beach with his kids. He's in the wheelchair. He's strapped up to a machine. He's like on a ventilator. He can't breathe on his own or anything. And he's just looking at his kids and watching. And basically the line said, "I realized that even a shadow, even a sliver of a dad is still a dad." And that line transformed my life, because even after the suicide attempt, I was still thinking I was a worthless piece of crap, basically. And then I realized that I still had that shadow, that sliver left, and I could be more. Now, from there, I went and started re-engaging with mental health services. Because I'd been put under the care of a crisis team after the suicide attempt, but it really felt like a box ticking exercise. Now, thankfully, I rebuilt bridges with my mum, because I'd stopped speaking to basically everyone at that point. And my mum paid for me to go through some therapy, through some CBT, through it personally, which I get is a massive, massive privilege for and that helped a lot, because that basically showed me different ways in which I could think about things. Because when you get stuck in your own ways, you think about something and you think that's the only way, and this is the story, this is the truth. The best example I can give that we all do on this is when it used to just be the home phone. We'd phone someone and they didn't answer. Do we tell ourselves that they were busy, or they were out, or like they were on the toilet because we didn't take the home phone into the toilet with us? When you phone someone on a mobile and they don't answer, the first thing you think is they're ignoring me, they're screening me, all this. It's like, and that's the kind of thing, is like when people didn't answer my phone calls back then, that was what I was feeling. It's like, I've burnt too many bridges. Nobody wants to be, part of my life anymore. No one wants anything to do with me. And so the therapy, that was good. And then I came out of that therapy thinking I was fixed, ready, healed, whatever it might be. Got to a certain level and I was like, I can do this on my own. Classic man. And the weird thing was then, a doctor, I ended up struggling again, but a doctor that had just been assigned to the doctor's surgery by me, he just basically been assigned me as a patient, opened up my file, looked at it and gone, this guy's not been back for a check on his bipolar or his medication for a long time. And he got in touch with me and basically sent me, he's like, look, before we do a medication check and everything, I want you to do this mindfulness course. And he sent me off on a mindfulness course with a primary carer. And that mindfulness isn't the kind of be all and end all for everybody, and medication isn't the be all and end all for everyone. CBT's not. There's no one size fits all, but mindfulness really fitted with me, because I'd been told at 14, you're either going to be all the way up here or you're going to be down there. And there wasn't much information at all. There was no internet, or there was really bad internet at that age. 1996, it made lots of noise as well. It was connecting, all that stuff.
Fuck off.
And someone's on the phone, you can't do it. It's like, but there wasn't much information for me. So my story had always been that I'm either here or I'm there. And that can be true for some people, that they only really feel like they exist. But when you tell yourself you only exist there, then you don't notice any of the stuff in the middle. You either think I'm manic or I'm depressed. You don't think I'm okay today. Like, I don't remember ever thinking as a kid, oh, I just feel kind of okay today. I remember thinking when I was low and I was depressed, it's always going to be like this. And then whenever I got manic and got elevated, I remember thinking, this is going to come crashing down sooner or later. And I couldn't even enjoy the highs because I was already anticipating that the next low was coming. And that's a common story that when I talk to other people with bipolar, that's what we've been led to believe is the case, because the education, it's not that fantastic. In reality, what it really means is that you're more prone to those things. You're prone to that high, you're prone to those lows. So if everyone else's emotions exist on a scale of 1 to 10, ours exist on a scale of -10 to +50. There's just a bigger scale. But we do still exist sometimes in that 1 to 10, the same as a person that's not got this condition. And that was what mindfulness taught me. The phrase "this too shall pass." It's a cliche. People sew it into pillows and put it on Instagram posts, but it's actually really powerful, because one of the biggest problems a lot of people have is when they've got problems and they think about their problems, they think this problem's going to last forever. These feelings are going to last forever. Last week when I was depressed again, I have no idea how long it's going to last. It lasts as long as it lasts. But if I'm beating myself up while it's doing that, it's probably going to last a little bit longer. If I sit there and go, you know what, this is going to last for months. Now suddenly I multiply what I'm feeling by months. Longer you hold something, the heavier it gets. Whereas if I sit there and go, this too shall pass, it reminds me that actually I've just got to get through this period. And something else is on the opposite side of it, and then I don't have to feel like this forever. So that was one of the really biggest changes for me. Unfortunately, that was the last positive experience I'd had with the doctors, because I had a really bad sort of relapse about 3 years ago, wanted to go back on medication. Took me ages to get all the way through to the psychotherapist, which is because I'd not been on medication for a while. I couldn't just have a medication review, so I had to go for a complete and utter reassessment. And the doctor, after taking 2 months to get through, they have to complete a mood diary for bipolar. I knew that was the biggest roller coaster of a mood diary I've ever handed into my doctor, and it was completely and utterly me being the objective truth, in terms of where those feelings were. And I was kind of panicked, thinking they're going to put me on, because of how bad it was. I thought they're going to put me on a much stronger dose than they usually do, or they might go more extreme. And all that happened is it was the most invalidating experience of my entire life. I went in and the guy he looks over it to talk to me for about 2 minutes, and he goes, "I think you've been misdiagnosed with bipolar." And I was like thinking, oh, we could be going somewhere interesting here. I thinking I was about to get some sort of breakthrough. And he just goes to me, "You've got your own business, haven't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, how many followers do you have on Facebook? And I'm like, at the time I had like 300. And I was like, 300. And he goes, "Get 500, you'll feel better." And then sends me on my way. And now, funnily enough, as you said in the intro, I've got over 10,000 now, and I do feel better. But now I want 50. Actually, I don't care about Facebook anymore. I want them all on Twitch. If I had 10,000 Twitch followers, that's what I want. But this, honestly, and I just went out of there, and I've never been so confused in my entire life, because part of me's like, now it's like, have I been? This was only 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm like, have I been misdiagnosed for like 22, 23 years? But then I didn't have any other answers. So since then, I've continued to treat myself as if I still have the diagnosis of bipolar, because I still have periods of mania and I still have periods of depression. But in terms of learning, I'm in the process now of trying to get assessed for ADHD, just down to a lot of traits that have been there my entire life that no one ever pointed out to me could have been ADHD. And then as soon as they started getting pointed out to me, I'm like, right, let's look this up. And like, I get along, like, if you put me in a conversation with another person with ADHD, it's like, try shutting us up for like 4.5 hours, right? But there's actually been shown that ADHD plus trauma, so like plus like PTSD, can very much present exactly the same as bipolar in terms of symptoms. So I'm in the process right now of trying to be assessed again, which it again, I spoke to a doctor about it earlier in the year. Because I've put on a lot of weight over lockdown, and like a lot of people have, all that doctor wants to talk to me about was my weight. And I'm like, I'm an ex-personal trainer. I can handle the weight side of things. I know what to eat. I know how to train. And he's like, you can't out-train a poor diet. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I've just told you, I'm a personal trainer. I can handle that part. What I can't handle is this part. Please pay attention to this part. And that's one of the most frustrating things, is the fact that people with mental health conditions often have to do most of their own advocating in order to get any form of treatment right now. and it's hard and it's difficult, and it's difficult for me, and it's difficult for a lot of my clients, because as I said, if any of my clients have got anything more serious than just the current thinking patterns aren't helping them, current behavior patterns aren't helping them, I have to refer them out. And I when I do refer them out, I know that a lot of times I'm going to be putting them into that system and them having to get that type, try and get that type of help that way. And it's one of the things I've helped clients with the most in the last year is actually how to speak to your doctor. So yeah, it's I'm sorry if that was a ridiculously long answer, and I hate that is the answer but it's the truth. But I hate that's the answer, because there are people out there that have very positive experience with the doctors, and also I wouldn't recommend anybody shy away from, especially obviously we've got with us having like the NHS and we've been able to get access to free healthcare. I really wouldn't recommend that anybody tries to do any of it on their own. I'd say I think that getting a doctor's involvement, especially when waiting times are concerned as well, because a waiting time is a waiting time from the moment you're on it. It's a waiting list from the moment that you're on it. So if you wait another 6 months to get on the waiting list, then it's 15 months as opposed to 9 months from now. So I do still strongly encourage people to go and speak to their doctors about what they're experiencing. But what you might find is that you might actually have to not only go and speak to them once, or maybe even speak to a different doctor. You might actually have to ask. And we've got something in the NHS called right to choose. You actually do. Most people don't know it's there. No one really goes around advertising it, but you can ask for a second opinion. You can ask for a different doctor. You can ask for someone else to do it. But again, most people either don't know it's there, or if they do, they've just built themselves up so much to go and have that first doctor's appointment that they've not got the fight left in them that day to go, I don't like what you've just said. Can I speak to somebody else?
Yeah,
that's it. It's just kind of the weight off the mind, really, kind of thing of actually being there. So it's, as I always say, it's like anytime someone asks me something and I'm not prepared for it, it's like I'm not prepared for a follow-up question. That's about it. Like, it's the same thing. Like,
I think the hardest part is actually taking that first step. I think most people are afraid to open up to even a relative. It may, even a stranger, they even pick up the phone and call them the helplines like Samaritans, and there's plenty out there. I think they're worried about being judged, and do you think that stigma is starting to go away since COVID happened? Now that more people are, well from what I've seen, they're starting to open up a bit more about how they struggle through COVID, about how they haven't seen their mother, their girlfriend, or everyone in months, and it got to them. So do you think people are learning over the past year more about their mental health and start to open up a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of things that people have experienced this year that other people with mental health were experiencing all along. Two big ones being forms of anxiety, so social anxiety and health anxiety. So weirdly enough, the people I know who have social anxiety and health anxiety have had it since before COVID. This is like the event they were practicing for. It's like I've got social anxiety. I've had this all along. It doesn't matter that I've not seen people for months and I've got to go and see them for the first time. I've been dealing with this for years. And health anxiety is worried that something's going to negatively impact you and your health, which obviously, the vast majority of us have had some degree of that over the last 18 months of year, as long as you exclude, people who are just outright COVID deniers. It's like they've not had health anxiety. They might have getting beat up on the street by someone who's like, why are you such a flat earther? But it's but yeah, so there's those forms are definitely more so there. More people are talking about it and have been. That's been steadily on the increase for years. Which is great to see, and people are getting better at listening to it as well. Listening to it is all that we really expect anybody to do if someone opens up to them. That's a big misconception, is people think that they need to have all the answers, and you don't. Sometimes you just need to listen and be non-judgmental of the person that's in front of you. Let them know that it's okay what they're feeling. Let them know that you hear them. Like that can be enough for a lot of people. But one of the main things that I would say that does continuously help is actually whenever celebrities open up about it. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with this, which is why there's a joke going around on my stream that I want to be a celebrity, because people take celebrities seriously even on things that they know nothing about. But when celebrities open up about mental health, it's huge, and it's great that then leads people to be like, me too. Like, the more we can actually open up about our mental health, it normalizes it and encourages other people to do it. One of the best things from doing this schoolwork that I do is it does have kids come up and actually make themselves known to the teachers, or make themselves known. I had this is like it's kind of like a very, very bittersweet story, really. The first time I taught a primary school, because we were only doing secondary school at first because we thought that they needed the maturity. Turns out primary school kids absorb stuff about anxiety and stress and depression, and can relate to it really, really well, especially if you put it in superhero analogies. And this one kid from year 6, which is like 11, came up to the front and just basically said, I suffer with depression, and I get really, really sad sometimes, and my mum doesn't know how to like deal with me when I'm like that. And like, I burst out crying, and the rest of his year group and like all just gave him this great big round of applause. And I'm like, that's such a hurdle that's kind of been overcome now, that an 11-year-old talking about that, or talking about it and just not having someone in the background go, oh, shut up and sit back down, whatever. Like, it's there's a lot of change there. But when especially, again, I wish this wasn't the case, that like men are often treated as strong now for opening up about their mental health, whereas women are treated as not so much. So there's been a sort of shift in that. So if a woman opens up about her mental health, it can often be seen as attention seeking, whereas if a man opens up about his mental health, he worries that he's going to be perceived as weak. But usually it's like we get so much credit for the fact that we do it, and I think that again comes from historically the fact that men have shut themselves off for it. And I think we'll find the balance of it eventually. Hopefully, there'll still always be people that think it's all in your head, and it's like, cool, and you go and kick them in the knee, and then you go, that's all in your knee. It's like don't worry about it. Don't kick people in the knee. You can get thrown off podcast things for inciting violence. I'm not inciting violence. I'm not suggesting you actually go and kick someone in the knee. It's like, that's the one bit you listen to in the whole podcast.
That's getting clipped up right there.
Seriously, the best way to get clips, by the way, is say to people, don't clip that. Little bit of armchair psychology for you there.
Thanks very much.
Wait, that's fucking mad. Like a 10-year-old saying that. Like, I'm thinking back from when I was in primary school. Like, that was never the talk of the school. Like, no one ever came in and talked about us. It was never mentioned in the classroom. It was never mentioned at home. Just to think a 10-year-old came up to you and said that is, I'm lost for words. I really am. Like,
that's mental. It really does show as well. Like, the real lapse there that was like in the planning. Like, that should have been mental health should have been a fundamental part of how school is set up. Yeah. In fairness, like, you know what I mean. Like, if your mental health is in the right place, you'll be able to learn better. You'll get on better. You'll socialize better. Your life will be better. You know what I mean? Like, I'm preaching to the choir over here.
Yeah.
But that's it. Like, it's fundamental. It should have been there for years. But I'm glad to hear that a man like yourself is bringing that to the forefront and really actioning that well. It's delighted. I'm absolutely delighted to be happy on.
Well, I'm trying, and I'm there's a lot of other people that are doing it as well. So which is great to see. And there's an organisation called Change Talks that I do that side of things with, and which is essentially, it's an organisation, but it's one guy as well. So who'd been through similar things. His name's Sam Tyrer, and he's an absolute legend. And he's, this particular one was his brainchild, and I'm just the mouthpiece of it. I get up, he does all the connections and puts all the dots together, and then I get up and do the talks, and that's it works out well for the pair of us, really, because he would rather be doing the things behind the scenes, and I'd much rather never do a piece of admin in my entire life. I took the register today when we did the session today, and I was like, look, Sam, I did admin. I'm proud of myself. And then I spoke for 5.5 hours. It was like, so it's like, I think, yeah, it was it's good. It's exciting what we're doing as well, because it's only at the minute that syllabus. We're testing it out in Lancashire and South Cumbria, so just 2 counties in the northwest of England. But there's already a bit of interest coming from Public Health England and stuff for taking it across the country, which I'm slightly terrified about. But you know what? Sometimes we're not always ready for things until we start doing them. So, but
Whereas only natural.
yeah, exactly.
And see the way people find it hard to open up about the mental health. Do you think people not slack off, but when they get the help and they start feeling a bit better, they're like, I don't need this anymore, and they go off do their own thing, then they fall back into the spell. They're like, oh shit, wait, actually, I do need more continuous help.
I'm not sure if people do that, but that's what I did. Yeah, no.
Yeah, he said to help afterwards when he felt like, I wouldn't say when he felt fine, when he wasn't going through his spells, helped him more than when he actually went to seek help in the first place.
Yeah, well, it's like, on Twitch we've got James from the In-Betweeners. Jay from the In-Betweeners has got his channel Completed It, mate. One day, I just want to get him on an interview, and all I want him to say is, mental health. Oh, I can't do his accent. Well, I've got 2 earphones in. I can't do accents when I've got headphones in. It's weird. I can do them. I do them perfectly when obviously without. I'm not going to take them out.
You have a great Irish accent.
My great Irish accent's not that bad actually. But I've got something to bounce off right now. I just want him to say mental health completed it, mate, because that's how I felt. That's how I felt about 5 years into, once I started really looking after things in my sort of like early mid 30s. So when I was about 33, 34, I really thought I had it cracked. I was going to the gym every day, 6 days a week, taking a rest day. I was eating obscenely well. I had a business that I was doing really, really well in. As I said, I was being there for clients was actually giving me a sense of purpose and all of this. My relationship was going well. My relationship with my kids were going well. Everything was just really good for a solid few years, and I had never had that. Like, I've still had bad days, but they were days. There was never really depressed periods where I was completely despondent and I completely lost hope. And then I had that period that I told you about where I ended up back at the doctor's, and the whole, get some more likes on Facebook debacle happened. And what brought me out of that, I was lying on my couch, basically crying out loud, repeating the phrase, "No one's coming to save me." Like, that was, my brain had got that phrase stuck on a loop, and I was just sat there weeping, just going, "No one's coming to save me. No one's." And at one point, I just repeated it one more time, and it was like a ping moment, and it was just like, no one's coming to save me. I've got to do this myself. And then I was like, the secondary ping went off, which was like saying, if you're feeling like this, then there's probably other people that feel like this too. There's probably so many other people out there that are waiting for someone to come and save them, and haven't quite got to that stage where you're saying, now that I need to do this for myself. And off the back of that, I launched a project called A Life a Day, which was basically, I said, from January 2018, I think I started it. 18, 19, 20. Yeah. 21. This year was its 4th year. Yeah. So 18. Yeah. So into January 2018, I set out with this plan to be proactive with helping people, with reaching out to try and help people before they reach out to me. And the idea of offering an hour of my day every day to a different person. It was supposed to last 1 year. And I couldn't do it literally 1 hour every single day. Some days I did 4 hours, some days I did none, and but I did it, and by the middle of November I'd done the full 365 for the year. And the problem is, like any human on this planet, you always want to make the next thing bigger. So I did it for a following year, and I called it A Life a Day, Pay It Forward, where I gave everybody an hour of my day, except for I basically said to them, I'm not going to ask you for anything in return. I just want you to do something nice for free for somebody else. So the idea being that I help 365 people, they each go and help 365 people. Yes, it is taken from a film, and then the film's called Pay It Forward. And then in 2020, I basically had this other project. I extended it further, and I'd made lots of contacts within both the personal training industry, other coaches, sports therapists, and all this. And I basically created something called A Life a Day. It Takes a Village. And I had harassed. I'm not good at asking people for stuff. I'm good at giving people stuff. I'm not good at asking people for stuff, right? So I harassed all of these people that had, like, you know, these other contacts, and was like, "Will, can I get you to give something away for free? And, like, you know, I'll push people in your area towards you, like saying that you've got this many sports massages or you've got this many PT sessions or whatever it is for free, and I'll help you find them, and then I'll, you know, big your page up through my page, and with a lot of us together, it's all based on, I think it's an African proverb. It takes a village to raise a child, and I am. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to take a village to raise the profile and to help with mental health. It's, you know, it's not going to be, I'll do as much of my job as I can do, but I'm only one small piece of the puzzle, you know. And so that was going fantastic until this little unknown thing happened around February or March called COVID. And then that shut it down. And for me, that that was just that destroyed the purpose of all that, and I couldn't ask anybody at that point to give up any time. And that was a huge side note off the back of the idea but that whole experience of me feeling like that, I think it was very humbling, and I needed that feeling, because you get a lot of people within this sort of self-development space that have mastered it, or again at least want to appear like they've mastered it, and they can be very, very judgmental quite easily. Like, oh, look, you just, that can be very invalidating towards someone's feelings. Yeah, you just need to do this more. You just need to do that more. Oh, I did this, so you should too. Oh, you know, I lost this amount of weight, so you should too. I made exercise a priority, so you should too. So you can, you know, and it's this, the word should, I hate it. Because it never makes a person feel empowered. It just makes a person feel shamed. It makes a person feel like they're not doing enough. And actually, that's not the best way to get a person to do things. 1 in every 200 people, roughly, you shame them, they'll do it, and then they'll do something out of spite. They'll achieve something out of spite just to piss you off. But the vast majority of us, as I said before, we don't guilt ourselves into greatness. And that's why I want to get Jay to be like, mental health completed it, mate, as a bit of a joke, because that's what I genuinely thought. I'm like, I've nailed this mental health thing now. And I needed to be brought back down to earth, because I'd probably be like hugely successful but unable to sleep at night if I'd have carried on down that path, because anyone else that had come up to me and said this is really, really hard, I'd have probably been one of those, you're just not trying enough kind of people, and I'd have turned into everything I hate. So I'm kind of glad that my depression kept me humble.
Imagine you got Jay to say that, and you used that as your Twitch sound.
I would, yes, that's what I want. I know I'm going to say, I don't know if you know Musical Moob Slap, but he's in the same stream team as him. So I keep on wanting to ask him, like, but at the same time, I'm really bad at asking for things if we haven't already covered that.
So we'll just give a little shout out to all your followers. Just get on to Jay from the In-Betweeners there and make sure that you can get that soundbite.
yeah, absolutely. I'll go and drop a big fat dono on his page, but then it's like, you don't do giving for the sake of getting something back. Again, see, I'm becoming everything I hate again. It's so easy. It's a slippery slope to lose your ethics.
It might take a village though to get him to send that over to you.
Well, yeah, a village, small army.
That's it. We'll see what we can wrangle up.
Oh, amazing.
Speaking of Twitch there, Dave, it's going to share your social media platforms. So if you go follow Dave on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, everywhere is Mindset by Dave. The content he puts up is unreal. And you give some great advice. There was one in particular, Dave, where you said that set little goals for yourself. Something as small as getting out of bed, having a shower, making your bed, doing the dishes, etc. Set little goals, and you can look back at the day to say, look what I've achieved. I didn't sit around all day. I actually achieved something in my day and actually feel better about yourself.
Yeah.
And some of the content you put out, like, I have to applaud you. Like, you really do open my eyes to some things, and it has helped me personally. So just thank you for that while I'm here.
I appreciate it.
But you're just a man of many words.
Yeah.
I'd love to just pick at your brain and see what's going on in there.
Well, to be fair, I generally put what's going on in my brain out on my social medias. Like that's one thing I've got good at is like sometimes it's like journaling on the fly. My Twitter's definitely become that over the last 2 years or so. Sometimes I'm like, did I put this thought out? Like I call it half cooked, partially cooked chicken. It's like, is this thought is not cooked all the way through? And, but yeah, like the last week, there's been a lot of deep thinking about my own depression and like what is kind of currently leading to that, and then what's kind of historically led to a lot of that. And one of the big ones we've talked about a little bit today is the fact that I struggle to ask people for help. But not only do I struggle to ask people for help, I struggle to do things just for me. The easiest way I justify doing things for me is that if I do something for me, then it helps somebody else. So the one I've really made peace with now is that I go to the gym basically every day. And when I go to the gym, I'm bouncier and happier at home. So for me to go to the gym just for me in the first place was it took a while to get over that hump. I'm much more happy being the one giving the help than being the one receiving the help. But this was one of the big things that I was having. I'm calling it my midlife crisis, to be honest. Because I had at 24 when I had that, what I called my quarter life crisis, I hit a point where I'd literally spent years doing everything for everybody else. I've been that type of person. I've been that type of person as long as I can remember, and it kind of makes sense. Like my dad, I only ever saw him for a couple of hours a week, and most of the time he was asleep, and if I made a noise and woke him up, I was in trouble. Whereas my mum, because my dad had left, she started her own business, and she was working every hour God sends, and I needed to stay out of the way there so that she could focus and concentrate on what she was doing. So I very much learned to put my own needs last, and to put the needs of everyone else first. And that has just carried on forever for me, to the point at which I've found ways to sort of work around it, but not enough. And as a result, when I was 24, I rebelled and pushed back against that. And I could feel it coming like for weeks now, about the fact that I'm just getting so exhausted of putting everybody else first. But I feel like if I put myself first, like my Twitch audience wouldn't still be there, or if I put myself there first, my wife would be angry with me. It's like there's a kind of a little bit of a, I'm not sure if it's reached the stage of a joke yet, because we only started talking about it last week. But in my house, I said if people could see inside my head and see what I was thinking, like you just said then, they'd probably think that my wife was an abuser, because she has literally never said that I can't go out and see my friends or I can't do anything. But because of like my own thoughts about that from history that I've not quite fully processed and not quite fully and that they never came up when in my therapy, which is bizarre really. Loads of other stuff came up in my therapy, and some of the ways my dad treated me came up in therapy, but that whole needing to be out the way for my mum thing never came up in therapy, because as far as I'm concerned, when I did see my mum, we had a fantastic relationship, and we still do. So it was always like my dad relationship being the big obvious one. So I've not fully dealt with those yet, and it's something that I'm starting to now work through, and I'm going to go and get a bit more CBT, specifically focusing on that particular issue, to hopefully work through that. Because it right now, it's like every time that one of my friends says, do you fancy doing something, all I'm thinking is, what if Alona needs me, or what if the kids need me? When even when it's down to like work appointments, I find it easy to take them during the day. But like if of an evening, I mean, this like I was all right with this one, but like I'm like, I can't just say yes and be my own boss, even though I am my own boss. I feel like I've got to run everything past my family, and that's never been said. And also, Alona doesn't have to do that with me either. And I'm not arsed with it when she does it, unless she does it like 5 nights a week, and then I'm like, when am I seeing you? But like it's that's one of the big things I've got to get over, because as anyone who's ever put everyone else first will know, is eventually you feel great at first from it. It gives you a purpose, it gives you a sense of drive, but eventually you start feeling put out yourself. You start feeling maybe a little bit resentful and a little bit bitter. Now, when I was 24, that meant screw everybody. I'm not that I'm no one's, I'm mine. And, you know, that really came to a culmination when I kind of buggered off to Thailand on my own for a month and just like left everyone behind and stuff. And I don't want that to happen again. So now it's like, okay, well, what can I do to look after myself? And a lot of that's been like little baby steps, you know, recently. This is going to sound really silly, especially to a bunch of guys, but bought myself some of my own shampoo, not using my wife's, you know, like basically because I've got psoriasis, I've got a different scalp than she does, and I haven't had medicated shampoo since I was about 14 or 15. So I've just used hers and then had an itchy scalp for like 20 odd years. And I bought myself some psoriasis shampoo a couple of months back, and that's a little act of self-care. You know, like, you know, buying myself some clothes, like rather than waiting for like Christmas or birthday to come around, and like, you know, 90% of my wardrobe's been bought for me by my missus these days, because I'll just wait until if there's an event coming up, and I'll be buying a new shirt on the morning of the event sometimes because I've got to have one then. But I'm terrible at, like, you know, getting everything for the stream room was hard. Like, in fact, again, most of this stuff was Christmas and birthday gifts, like the stuff that I have. Like, I find it hard to even money that I've earned myself spend on what I'm doing, and that's something I'm really working through. So if you want to know what's going on inside my head, that's what's going on inside my head about me at the minute. In terms of the rest of the world, it's like it's feeling like the job with mental health is like some days you see the results with that, as in like other days it's like you've got to just remind yourself that actually keeping things exactly how they are and stopping them from getting any worse actually is a win. You know, because that's what it can feel like some days it can feel like, you know, you've been in my Twitch chat, so you know that some days we have just struggle after struggle after struggle after struggle in that chat. Other days there's people in there sharing the wins and saying what they've, like, things that we've talked about the week before have helped them, but a lot of times it's people that are just struggling. And that's when you're faced with that a lot, it's you have to again take those little wins wherever those wins are, and that's one of the big things is, you know, I need to value myself more, but I also need to kind of value the wins that we get in that department more, like you said before.
You touched on the other day saying that all the stuff you have is mainly Christmas presents. They don't buy yourself stuff. That basically described me. That's how I used to be up until like literally a few months ago, where I struggled to buy myself like a €6 top online. Like €6, I can use that for lunch or whatever. Like I find it hard to treat myself. But regarding like materialistic things, you think people go out and try flash things, just try show off. Like, let's say the new iPhone comes out, it's £1,000. People would rather spend that £1,000 on a new iPhone rather than, let's say, investing in themselves, like maybe starting up a new business venture. Like, you have 2 or 3 hours to sit there and watch Netflix rather than spend 2 or 3 hours to maybe invest in themselves or learn new skills sort of thing.
Yeah, like go to the gym or do yoga or something like that,
meditation,
or even yourself mindfulness, like.
Yeah. So, like, are people trying to cope by trying to show, oh, look at me, I've loads of money, I'm gonna go buy the new Gucci belt just to show people, like, oh, look at me, I have money, I'm gonna feel great about myself, and then go home like, I have no money to eat now.
Yeah, well, I mean, I sort of like used this phrase before, didn't I? Said about call it a boomerang, you know, basically it gives you something positive in the short term, only to come whipping back later on. And I really can't say anything about phones because I may have already got an iPhone 13. Like, that was my big act of rebellion. I mean, I've not paid any money for it yet. Obviously, it's all an extra £10 on my bill for the next 2 years or whatever. So that was, and it was a very nice Scottish man on the phone. You know, I love a good Scottish accent, and yeah. So I upgraded myself on Friday, and I'm not really embarrassed to admit this, but I hate the fact that it was this obvious, is the fact that I was still in my depression at that point, and that was the first time I felt happy all week. And then that feeling was quite fleeting, you know. I was like, oh, but it was a personal victory. It was twofold, you know. There was the feeling of, oh, I've just bought myself a new phone, but it was also a personal victory of, I struggle to buy myself anything, and I've just bought myself a new phone. I mean, I do that every 2 years anyway, and I was going to do that at some point. But the fact that, especially while I was feeling like this, and maybe I was thinking, oh, I'll put that phone off for another week or whatever, and it was announced a week ago. I've been due an upgrade since January, and I didn't jump straight on it. So like I don't know what I was going to do, what I was going to wait for. But I did it. But it was like I say, it was this sort of two-pronged thing. It was that personal victory, and honestly, it comes down to I get people to answer the question, what's the positive you get from this? Because everything we do, we get a positive from, even if that positive is short-lived. We like instant gratification. We're programmed for it. It's bad, and it's sort of like the younger generation are more programmed for it than my generation. Because Netflix, when it first started, I was around like getting Netflix through the post, or I'd go to Blockbuster Video, which the kids might know from watching Captain Marvel, but like I'd go to Blockbuster Video and spend 3 hours kind of filtering through, seeing what's in there, only to then find the one that you want isn't in stock, and then having to pick another one and all that. We knew about delayed gratification, and everything's got quicker. And I don't blame us as individuals for the fact because once we get something, that becomes the expectation. There's a great story that there's a guy called Tony Robbins, who's a very much Marmite. He's like probably the biggest mindset coach in the world, essentially. / he wouldn't call himself that. Probably call himself a motivational speaker. I don't know, but he's like the biggie, and as a result, the people have got a very, very love-hate relationship with him. People either seem to adore him, or people think that he's full of shit and can't stand him. I fall somewhere in the middle, which is rare. I've been to one of his seminars. I thought it was 50% good, 50% lots and lots of upselling. He tells this story about when he was on a flight really, really early, when flights had just got Wi-Fi for the first time. And he said, basically, as they were taking off, it's like, welcome to your Delta Airlines, and on board for the first time ever today, we have in-flight Wi-Fi. And like everyone on the plane's like, oh my God, this is amazing, this is fantastic. And it worked for like 20 minutes. And then after that 20 minutes, it went down, and Delta had never had more complaints than that. And it's like, you literally, up until 20 minutes ago, didn't know this was a thing. Like, that's how quickly we get used to like things, and then we don't like them being taken away. And so we get used to things being like, if Amazon decided that, let's get rid of Prime now, and you can just have regular deliveries in 3 to 5 days or whatever, because they've decided that they want to treat their factory workers with dignity, then like we'd hate it. We'd all be like, what the hell? What's this? Well, like what? I want it now. I want it right now. If think about about how with like Netflix and stuff, it's like they release the seasons in one go most of the time. Like the Marvel stuff right now is like the only thing that my kids are having to wait for week to week, and they can't stand waiting week to week. But they're actually beginning to get that little bit of excitement that we might have had back when like Friends was first released or whatever. It's like, oh, I can't wait for the next episode. You've got anticipation again. You've got a little bit of delayed gratification. And when it comes to stuff like what you said before about like buying things for ourselves gives us a little bit of a dopamine hit, which is our reward chemical. Basically, it goes off as a little reward. We feel good, or we feel flush. There's social credit, or at least perceived social credit, in having nice things. The reason I say perceived social credit is because we think other people will be impressed with us for having certain things, when in reality they're probably not really. And we think that's what's important to other people, again, when it's probably not. And they're all kind of quite shallow victories, unless you take long-term pleasure in having stuff. If there's an expression like, I think it was California Dreams or something, like a really cheesy teen TV show in the 90s, where the guy was like, money can't make you happy, but money can buy you stuff, and stuff can make you happy. It was like, that's kind of how people think about it. But like you said before, the that's a boomerang. It gives you, you know, you get the instant gratification, and then the negativity comes afterwards. The opposite of being a slingshot. A slingshot, you have to pull back, put under tension. I don't know why I'm faking it with actually out using an actual slingshot, because I do have one on my desk for this very reason. You pull it back, you put it under tension, you get the result later. When you go to the gym, I love the gym. I've been going for absolutely years now, to the point at which it's an ingrained habit. I miss it when it's not there. I really missed it last year, but I don't enjoy most workouts. I enjoy them more once they're done, or once I'm past a certain point in the workout. I don't walk through the door, and I did for a while, like walk through the door. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to be on this today. I hardly ever feel like that now, but I always feel glad that I've done it. Cooking a nutritious meal, again, when I was a PT, I got really into the habit of doing that. So it became a little bit easier. And then when I kind of got off that high horse and thought that I have to be this person all the time, I remember that some of the other things that I make are a little bit more delicious, or whatever it is. And it's usually more effort to make the nutritious meal. And it's usually the reward for it comes later on, rather than the instant gratification of this thing's covered in peri-peri sauce and it's delicious. So it's this instant gratification thing. It's like, and we could do with training ourselves to be okay with delayed gratification. The reward for this will come later, or even doing it being its own reward. Like, rather than everything having to be something that you're rewarded for. Oh, I did an hour of work, I'm going to give myself 20 minutes on FIFA, or whatever it might be. It's like, I did an hour of work, yay, go me. Like, actually just taking a moment to feel happy at yourself for the fact that you did it, especially if you're self-employed and you're working on individual projects. It's like, it can be the motivation to do that. We think that we'll be so much more motivated when it's just for ourselves and stuff, but the motivation to do that is, the best way I describe it is, you're riding a roller coaster whilst you're still building it. So you're like, this next piece is going to take me back up again. I know it, I just know it, and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, celebrating the fact that actually I put the effort in. Last week, when I was really struggling with depression, I made it to the gym once on the Friday. And I didn't enjoy the workout, and I didn't feel better even for being there. But what I was telling myself when I got home was, look, even if you didn't enjoy that, your body's going to have collateral benefits to the fact that you've done that workout. If I get out and walk my dog when I feel like I don't want to, I might not come back going, I'm so glad I walked that dog. But then again, my body's moved. The benefit is like, the benefits coming later, and then when I'm feeling better, it's or it might have slowed me down from feeling worse, which again, as I said before, it's a huge result. Sometimes not every result is an obvious win. A win sometimes is, I don't feel any worse. And that's explain this in emotions, but I think a way to explain it better is if you imagine finances. Because most of us are more familiar with our finances than we are with our emotions. We know that if you're $1,000 in debt and you put a $5 in the bank, it doesn't get you out of debt, but it gets you closer. And it's like, and if you're in $1,000 in depression and you go and do a workout, it doesn't get you out of depression, but it gets you closer. And some days it's like, if you're again $1,000 in debt and you're about to spend an extra 20 quid, and you stop yourself and you save that, you're not any further out of debt, but you're also not further into debt. And the same can be true with our emotions. It's like, if last week a lot of people did, because I opened up about not being too well last week. A lot of people did actually reach out to me through social media, which was amazing. And I felt at first guilty, because I'm like, surely all these nice messages from people should be making me feel better. But what I could say is, actually, it probably stopped me from spiraling even further, and it probably slowed down the fact that I was heading to a pretty dark place at that time. And if you stop a person from going any further, it might not look like a result from the outside, but it is a massive result.
Maybe what's it, Teddy? He has some way worse, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's it.
I hope I'm not going on too much for you.
I'm telling you, watch him on Tuesdays when he does his Twitch things when you're working from home. Whack him on the background.
Well, that's it. You have a new follower anyway. You believe one new one from this.
Tomorrow from 1. It's my triumphant return tomorrow because I've not streamed since last Tuesday. But only a week off, but it feels like ages.
Well, there you go. I'll be happy to join it. I'll be happy to sit there and listen.
10 to 6 tomorrow, Beth.
You what?
10 o'clock to 6 o'clock tomorrow on Twitch.
No, it's not 10 anymore. It was 10:04 at one point when that was just I split it up into 2. So it's an afternoon on a Tuesday and a morning on a Friday now. So it's 1 till 5. I don't know if I'll go the full length tomorrow because I'll either ease it back in and do like 1 till 3, 1 till 4, or I'll get like so made up to be back and I'll go manic and hyper and I'll still be there Wednesday morning or something ridiculous. But it's 1 till 5 on a Tuesday, 1 till 3 on a Thursday, and then 9 till 12 in the morning on a Friday. And I don't do Saturdays as a schedule anymore, but I do the occasional Saturday stream as well.
There's no way you set deadlines because you're always behind on chat, so you'd be looking to change them times.
Well, that's it. It does. I do catch up. I actually hate it when I catch up with chats because then we have to move into small talk, and I'm not so good at small talk. I'm good at big talk.
As you can tell.
Yeah.
You have a T-shirt behind on chat, don't you?
I do. It was a bit of a joke because people used to always come in and say, "How behind is he today?" And then people in my chat had put a timestamp in, and then when a time I caught up with the timestamp, we'd see what time it was. So the longest I've been behind was 47 minutes, I think. There was one time that I was 32 minutes behind when the stream had only been up for 44. So within 12 minutes, I'd already gone half an hour behind. But my philosophy on all of this is, I like to give as much value as I can with each answer. I like to take everything that comes up in chat. I do answer everything that comes up in chat. Some people think I don't, but that just means they didn't stick around for long enough. You know, it's like I do answer everything that comes up in chat, and I like to try and give an appropriately lengthed answer for each question. You know, it's not just like if someone comes in and says, "Oh, you know, I'm really struggling today," and I won't just go, "All right, you know, Johnny's really struggling today. Sorry to hear that," and move on. Do you know what I mean? I'd want to go, look, I said, is there anything particular you're struggling with today? What's been going on in your life recently? You know, please feel free to come in and talk about it and pop it in here. You know, like a lot of streamers don't like people. They call it trauma dumping. I can't stand that phrase. But a lot of people don't like that. But I encourage that in my chat because as far as I'm concerned, it's all based on how I used to run peer support for mental health, not one-to-one, in groups in the gym. Like we'd do an hour of exercise for free and then we'd do an hour of chat. So it was this once a week session where it'd be a 2-hour sort of private circuit training followed by a private chat with like a small group of about up to 12 people. And I base it off that. We deal with the person who has the biggest needs in the room. And that can, if someone's feeling suicidal or they're feeling in crisis right then, dealing with that person might be compassionately trying to help them get towards using a helpline or something. Because, I am trained as a suicide prevention officer, but Twitch is not the place to do it. It's because you can't give the person the one-to-one attention that they need. You're in the midst of everyone else with chat and stuff. So. But we try our best to kind of get to absolutely everything and give a decent conversation around everything rather than just being like saying mental health. Well, what did I used to always say about it? Before it was mental health and it was just mindset. Mindset became a buzzword about 4 years ago. And so everyone would just put mindset is everything. And I'd be like, oh, cool. Someone else who knows about mindset. This will be a cool person to chat to. And he'd be like, yes, mindset is everything. What do you know about it? What do you know about mindset then? Let's talk about mindset. And they'd be like, that it's important. It's like, that would be the length of the conversation. So I do get it. I might be a little bit long in the tooth for some people. We have a joke on Instagram that a picture says 1,000 words, but most of my pictures come with another 1,000 on top of it. I like to write essays on Instagram, but we're dealing with an amazingly important and nuanced topic. and I don't just like to pay it lip service and move on. You know, I like to get into chew the fat on it, basically.
Yeah.
I can't recommend this fella enough. Go follow him on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. Yeah, podcast. What's your podcast called, Dave? Give it a plug
It's
there.
now called the Mindset by Dave podcast. Originally, it was called Master the Mind, Master Anything by Dave Cottrell, but most people, as you know, can't say or pronounce or spell my surname. So I changed it to the Mindset by Dave podcast, so it's as easy to find as everything else.
Perfect. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'd love listening to you. I have done since day one I met you on the Twitch chat. You're a legend. I appreciate everything you do. And here's to many, many more years of you doing what you do, because you really do help a lot of people. I'm one of them, so appreciate everything you do. Keep it up.
No probs. Appreciate you for having me on. Thanks very much.
So we're going to end the podcast here, people. Don't forget to check out Dave's links in the description below. Please check him out. Go follow him. Listen to him when you're at home. Throw him on the background. Go into his live streams. Please do check him out. I can't recommend them highly enough, as you can tell in the past hour and a bit. So
That's for the first time in my life I've been left speechless. I've just been happy enough to sit here listening to you. Which probably you know what I mean? And for anyone that knows me well enough knows that's fucking hard enough to do. So you know what? You've already conquered one thing. Fair play to you, Dev.
No probs. Well, I used to feel a little bit self insecure about doing that on people's podcasts, and then when you host them enough yourself, you actually realize that's actually the guests I like. Those are the guests I quite like to have on, the ones where I don't have to say anything. Like they're my favorite guests. So now I don't feel too bad about it.
Oh, I'm absolutely delighted, because it's the way I'd love for it to be. I love hearing you have such an interesting story, and you have such a great perspective on everything, and the work you're doing as well. I can't give you enough credit for. So, Dave, I'm absolutely delighted that you came on here, and thank you so much for that.
No worries. I appreciate you for having me on.
we're going to end the podcast here, people. As I said, check out Dave. His links will be below in the description.
And while you're checking out Dave's stuff, don't forget to give us a little like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on every single social that we have, please, and thank you.
All the socials.
Everything.
Because for independent creators such as ourselves, it really makes the difference.
Oh, the tree.
For just one click, you could sort us out for the rest of our lives.
Oh, amazing.
On that note, we'll leave us there. Take it easy.
That's it, lads. The after session is over now. Get the fuck out.